Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Party on Broad. It is Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. The Party on Broad podcast can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Hit that subscribe button, guys, if you're here watching us at the Painted Lines YouTube channel. Today, we are doing the post-game show of our MLB GOAT Draft. We're going to react, we're going to grade, and talk about our squads before we put these out in brackets. And you guys on Twitter over at Phillies TPL are going to, vote for your best squads. We're talking the 5 best starting pitchers and 1 closer. You pick what the best squad is. And joining us today is my man, Jason. Follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA. He's the Sixers insider for TPL and 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, JB?
I'm very excited to be here. Very excited about my team, too. Just as I was saying before we started recording, it went perfectly for me.
All right. Also joining us today is my man, our co-host of the Party on Broad podcast. He is John Russell 215 on Twitter. What's going on, JR?
I can't wait to talk shit on all your guys' teams.
You? What?
What else is new?
Yes, shocking. Also joining us today is my man, Joey. Check out his newest TPL newsletter. Make sure you subscribe over at the Painted Lines for that newsletter. Follow him on Twitter at JoeyD_6. What's going on, Joey?
Beautiful intro. Yeah. Go subscribe to the newsletter. It's dope. I promise.
Couldn't agree more. Next up, we have back-to-back champions, 2-time draft champion. He is Brian. Follow him on Twitter at Brian Baker TPL. What's going on, Brian?
Oh, well, I'm not going to lie. After the last 2 drafts that we did, the all-time Philly athlete draft and then the all-time NBA draft, I was extremely confident in my chances to win it. I will admit this is the least confident I've been after one.
You're scrambling a bunch.
I'm going to be very self-aware here and admit that I'm less confident about this one. But we had some great baseball minds here in this draft, and so it was fun.
All right, and we have a super special guest joining us today. He is Rich O'Malley on Twitter. He is the author of One Lucky Fan. Please go check that out. What's going on, Rich? And tell us a little bit about One Lucky Fan, man.
Well, thanks for having me here tonight. It was fun doing the draft, although I see I've drafted someone named Bartola. We'll get to that. But yeah, the book is my journey through seeing a home game for all 123 teams in American sports, NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB. So it's a lifelong tale, and it's a tale of me running around on the road, and you can follow along almost like a travel log. So check it out on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you buy books.
All right, so here we go. This is the post-game show. We're going to kind of break down each squad, and we're going to assign a grade. 0 to 10, 10 being the best, 0 being complete trash. Let's start off with my man, Tom. He's got Roger Clemens with the first overall pick, CC Sabathia, Johan Santana, Andy Pettit, Eric Gagne, and Jamie Moyer. My first take is I love the Jamie Moyer pick. I think that's one of my favorite picks in this last round. I think there's a fan base for that, and I think that's going to be one of those picks that, has, some kind of like, who will sway a very close poll. What's your quick take on this squad, Jason?
I agree. I think if you love baseball, you have to love Jamie Moyer. I mean, the guy had 7 pitches. He could change speeds. He couldn't blow anybody away. He was, you could argue he was mediocre every year of his career, but he was just a fun pitcher to watch. You never regretted watching Jamie Moyer pitch, and he's just a fun guy. So he's a memorable player in Major League history.
Quick take on this squad, JR.
Solid. I love having Eric or Andy Pettit as your number 4. That's really great, especially talking about clutch games. Gagne was fine for a little run with the Dodgers right there. Solid team overall. B+ range, I think, is where I would sit on that.
All right. What about you, Joey?
Yeah, definitely a solid squad. I did love that Jamie Moyer pick. I mean, that dude was an absolute relic. He gave a lot of hope to a lot of mid-40s men who thought that they already peaked. But I will say the pick of Roger Clemens #1 overall was a little shocking to me. I expected a guy like Greg Maddux to possibly go there, but I also love that Johan Santana pick. At his peak, he was absolutely elite.
Beast lefty. What about you, Bryant?
I agree with everything that has been said about Jamie Moyer, all the way down to the mediocre. So,
Wait, Brian, you and I agree? Crazy.
Shocking, right? Except I'm taking it in a different direction here and say that I loved Jamie Moyer, but he's not an MLB GOAT. So, an MLB GOAT draft. I do think it's a pick that could be a difference maker in a close battle and not in a positive way like Mr. Crockpot seems to think.
All right. Okay. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, in staring at this list for a while, I was shocked Clemens went on #1 myself. But then after that, I mean, I've watched CC for many years as a Yankee fan, and aside from the postseason, it could go either way with him. I think a lot of these pitchers, they could have ace outings and they could just get bombed, and I think I've seen all of them do that. So for me, a mixed bag, C plus, something like that.
Yeah, I think I'm in that.
And I say that knowing I go next, and you're all going to rip me apart, so that's fine.
This is the fun part, man. All right, I give this like a solid B-. I like the power picks in Clemens and CC. Johan was absolutely dominant for that time. Andy Pettit and Jamie Moyer, some real consistent guys there. And Eric Gagne was a little bit of a surprise for me, but in his peak, that guy was like almost the face of baseball. So I'm in that B- range. Do you want to sign a grade, JB?
C. It's fine.
What about you, Joey?
I'll go B-, I think.
Bryant?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go C plus. I was ripping the Jamie Moyer pick, but I think the rest of them are solid, so C plus.
All right, we already got JR and Rich's score. Let's move on to Rich's squad. Tell us a little bit about your team, man.
So I went for, I pulled up Hall of Fame lists, top strikeout lists, and I looked at WAR a lot. And so I wanted, solid performers going back into history. I know we're playing a Twitter vote game too, but I also want the baseball purists out there to have like a team that go like, holy crap, someone took Feller and Spahn. So that was kind of my thinking. You guys started taking a lot of the modern players, and I'm like, all right, I'll be that guy, and I'll go do that. So I started out there. The only pick I really wish I could take back is Perry, because I don't think he's going to translate into votes at all. And then there were some solid guys in that area. Like the pick after with Page is fantastic. So like that was the one I would take back if I could take any back. I would never take back Bartolo Colon.
I love your top two picks. Pedro and John Smoltz are hell of a top two picks. What about you, JB?
Pedro Martinez, favorite baseball player of all time for me to watch. Late action, really wild early in his career. Younger brother Ramon Martinez came up through the Dodgers. They never should have let him go. Just as far as pure watching the game, watching a pitcher grow over time, he's, and just a lovable guy. So Pedro is.
Unless you're a Yankee fan.
Yeah,
he is
well,
now.
I'm not.
He is now.
It's just a lovable guy. Probably my favorite baseball player of all time. So it's Smoltz again was a swing pick for me. I considered him because he had a great couple of years as a closer, and he had a great Hall of Fame career as a starter. So I love that pick as well. So those two guys, alone for me, those are guys I wish I had on my team.
JR?
It's a B plus for me. Pedro's the absolute greatest pitcher in baseball I've ever seen. Steroid era, he maintained a sub-2 ERA, which is absolutely unheard of. Bartolo Colon makes us not be an A, although he's a fun gag pitcher to have on your team, kind of like Jamie Moyer. So I'll still go to B plus too. Solid squad.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, really solid squad. Obviously, I love Pedro. I mean, 11-year-old me when he signed in '09 I was so elated when he came because he was one of my favorite players, absolutely growing up. Love John Smoltz. Not many guys can say they have a 20-win season and a 55 save season on their resume, which is absolutely absurd. Can't comment on Bob Feller and Warren Spahn because that is way before my time. And obviously, Bartolo is a cult figure.
All right. Go ahead,
A
Brian.
round figure.
Very round. Yes, very round.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Rich even said about his squad. I think it's a very good squad. Perry probably not going to grab the votes, as he mentioned, but yeah, overall solid. I don't have much more to add than what everyone else already said.
Yeah, I'm in that B+ range. I think, we did a comic book movie draft, and I feel like if you had The Dark Knight, people are going to vote for you. And I think that people are going to see Pedro Martinez and be like, yes.
Yeah.
And that's a really good choice. Like this guy, 69%, he won every single career decision and just was absolutely lights out in the playoffs. B+. I think we got everyone's except for you, Jason. What's your grade?
I mean, Pedro, I'm going to give it an A. Pedro and Smoltz were high on my board. I was hoping to grab them both, so it's an A.
All right, let's move on to Dan's squad. He's got Nolan Ryan, Kurt Schilling, Dennis Eckersley, Don Drysdale, Satchel Paige, and Jack Morris. What's your take on this squad, JB?
So I think Satchel Paige is a bit of a loophole, let's say, to the 1947 rule. I don't think that Satchel Paige in 1947, 1948 was doing anything for you. I think Eckersley was solid in the third round. Schilling, he had. I still feel like Schilling is an interesting character. So I still somehow feel disappointed in how things worked out with him for some reason.
JR? Go ahead.
Yeah. Nolan Ryan, I watched a lot of Nolan Ryan growing up. He struck a lot of guys out, but to me, he was never like the best pitcher in baseball, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, everyone talks about the strikeouts, but got to talk about the walks, right? What about you, JR?
Yeah. Solid squad. He's got a great 1-2 combination. Reminds me of that Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling combo they had with Diamondbacks for a little bit. Eckersley's a great reliever. He got him a little late, which is surprisingly. Drysdale is awesome. He only won one Cy Young award. Oh, Jack Morris is old and kind of blah. I'll go B+ because it's those three teams, 1, 2, 3, are very, very similar, but they have 2 or 3 greats, and then a question mark, and then kind of like a why is he drafted? So a B+.
What about you, Joey?
Yeah, that 1-2 punch is really good at the top. Nolan Ryan, absolute psychopath, but one of the best, hard-throwing pitchers of all time. Kurt Schilling, the person, is an asshole, but one of the best big game pitchers to ever play the game. Obviously, Eckersley is one of the best relievers ever as well. And Jack Morris, very underrated big game pitcher too. I'll give that a solid B. Actually, B+.
All right, go ahead, Brian.
I do wonder how the Kurt Schilling, the human part, is going to factor into these votes. It's hard to separate, I think, for a lot of people, his greatness on the mound from his not so greatness off it. And we saw him drafted in that Philly draft by someone, and I think he largely tanked that team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. But overall, a solid squad.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking ahead to some of the other teams, and this one's not my favorite. I thought Nolan Ryan at 3 was too high. I had, at least 3 guys. The next 4 guys, really, I thought, geez, Koufax went 9th. I keep remembering that name, and it just drives me nuts. Yeah, so anyway, that's my take. Sandy Koufax went 9. Nolan Ryan does not go 3. Sorry.
Nolan Ryan has like 22 no-hitters. Like, what? Nolan Ryan could have been 1 or 2.
Well, yeah,
He could have been.
Doesn't he have over 200 losses too?
This is subjective.
Do you know the teams he's played for?
But I don't know. Schilling, I think you're right. I think it's the same thing you said at Dark Knight. Like, he's going to lose votes as many as Pedro's going to win them. The rest of the team's okay. The Page thing was weird, but I like it. Jack Morris was a good last pick, I thought, in that spot. Although I have like a list of 10 people, I was like, well, which way do I go with this one? So I'll give this a B-.
I'm in that same boat. I'm in like a C plus B- range. I don't like the Nolan Ryan pick. It's way too high. Kurt Schilling, people are going to be first thought, this guy was a D-bag. And other than Dennis Eckersley in the third round, I'm not that big of a fan of this squad. Do we all do grades for this squad?
I'm going to give it a C, and I will just say Jack Morris wouldn't have won a fan vote while Jack Morris was at his peak. No one cared about Jack Morris ever. Everybody respected him. I think he was on the Kirby Puckett team, right? Nobody cared about Jack Morris.
All right, let's move on to my squad. I've got Mariano, Max Scherzer, Cole Hamels, Zach Greinke, Roy Oswalt, and Chris Carpenter. I was ecstatic to see Mariano Rivera, the most dominant pitcher, the single pitcher other than like the big unit. This guy scared the shit out of me every time he came into the game. Max Scherzer is just absolutely lights out. Cole Hamels, I mean, what can you say? The Phillies run to win the World Series. That I kind of maybe reached on him a little bit, but knowing that he's so beloved in Philadelphia, he won us a World Series. Just that changeup, he was completely unhittable in the World Series. And then I rounded out the squad with some of the most consistent pitchers in MLB history. Right? Zach Greinke, Roy Oswalt, Chris Carpenter, all those guys never lost. They were winners through and through. I'm very, very high on this squad. I think I give it a B+. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, I think fans are going to love this team. I think, Mariano would have been my number one pick if I had the number one pick. I like the Cole Hamels pick. Oswalt, interesting pitcher. I like him in the 5th round. Greinke's good. Scherzer's good. I like this team. I could see this team winning. It wouldn't surprise me.
JR?
So I'll give it a B+.
JR?
Deebs, I love you, but you got Carpenter, Oswalt, Greinke, Hamels. Ugh. I mean, they're from a fantasy baseball starting standpoint, these guys, when I've been playing fantasy baseball for 20-some years, you're talking Carpenter was a sub SP2, SP3. Oswalt towards the last 6 years of his career was terrible.
What?
Greinke on the Royals was subpar to say the most. It took him to get an actual team with bats till he was good.
He's already campaigning against you.
Yeah.
You must be afraid.
You're crazy, man.
Slander's already starting.
Love it.
And look, besides that Dallas Keuchel pick, which we'll talk about next, which was the worst one, I'll give this one a B. I'm not going to go too hard on you. A B.
Definitely some jealousy. I'm sensing a little bit of hate. I love it. Bring it, man. Bring it. All right, go ahead, Joey.
I like your team, actually. I think you had probably the two best crowd pleasers with Cole and Mariano. Obviously, like you said in the draft, Scherzer's an absolute just psycho. Greinke is also a psycho too. I still got PTSD with a Roy Oswalt joining during the 2011 season. I'll never forgive that team ever. And I also will never forgive Chris Carpenter for tearing up all my hopes and dreams that year as well.
Yeah, right. Total thorn in the side. What about you, Bryant?
I was at that Carpenter Doc battle game. My heart is still in pieces. I think it's a good squad. I do think Cole is probably a little bit of a reach, but I mean, yeah, you're playing to the Philly fan. I get that. I somewhat agree with the Carpenter Greinke beef that JR had.
Carpenter was an all-star 3 years. Where were you guys thinking he's good? Where was I for the last 22 years playing baseball?
No, that's what I'm saying. I somewhat agree with you there. I don't agree with you in the Oswalt thing. I think he was very good. I think that was a solid pick. I was actually hoping to get him in that round. Obviously, I missed him by 5 picks or something, so I wasn't that close. But I was hoping to get him there. I think it's a solid squad. I think it's I don't think I've given a grade yet, so I just won't still.
All right. Chris Carpenter made the playoffs 5 times. He was 10-4 overall, 3-0 in 2 World Series titles. So let's talk about that. So let's bring it, JR. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, I like this team a lot. I especially like the top 3. And Cole Hamels will definitely be winning you some votes, even though it was, as Brian said, a little high there for me, but love him right there for you. Carpenter, I don't get it at all. Greinke is another one of those pitchers that could go up and down. I know anti-recency bias in my head. Like, I know he's been lights out for 2 years, but like I still keep thinking back to that Royals Greinke who couldn't figure out what the hell he was doing. And Oswalt, I was 2 picks away from him, so I love that pick right there. Overall, I'm going to go. This will be my first in the A area. I'll go A- on this one.
Woo! First A. All right, what do we got? All right, I'm feeling high right now. All right, let's go. All right. Did we get all grades? Brian, you're not going to give grades tonight? What's up?
I don't know. I missed the first 3 or 4, so I'm whatever. Here, you want a grade? I'll give you. You want a grade? I'll give you a B+.
Thanks, man. All right, Jason, explain your squad.
All right, so I go with a very simple premise that keep guys off base, and they won't score. So I am very much anti-walk. I don't want my pitchers walking anyone. So walks and hits per innings pitched is my number 1 metric. I think ERA is super variable. Wins are super variable through eras, but keeping guys off base will win in any era. I know a lot of guys went with strikeouts and things like that, but I started with Bob Gibson, who simply put changed the game. They had to lower the mound because he was so dominant. When you look at someone like that, you project what his career might have looked like had they not made those kind of changes. He was the Mike Tyson of the era. The intimidation factor that he had with guys, and then his numbers are absolutely stellar. So he's one of the best pitchers of all time. Then I quite frankly I needed to get a closer, so I went with a guy I think he had a 60+ save season in Rodriguez, and then I just started picking guys again that within my walks and hits per innings pitched metric rank high, but I also thought had interesting deliveries, were interesting to watch. I've talked about late action, and I'm really a guy that likes late action on and funky deliveries. So Marichal, McLean had that. Ferguson Jenkins, quite frankly, he was on the list, but he's got an interesting name. I'm hoping that people will remember it, and he won't cost me votes. And then I never should have picked anybody named Dallas, because I have a couple of rules here. I don't want to pick any Braves if I can avoid it. I don't want to pick any Celtics and any NBA stuff. I don't want to pick anybody named Dallas or associated with the Cowboys. So that's one I'd like to have back. Obviously not a great pick, but within the framework I was going with, he'd fit.
All right, go ahead, Jar.
A C+ because you got Bob Gibson. K-Rod went way too early, although he's phenomenal. But it's going to be tough for you, JB. Going to be tough.
All right, go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with C+ too, because obviously Bob Gibson actually was so good that he changed the game. I feel like K-Rod went way too early too. And Jason, my brother, what are you doing with that Dallas Keuchel pick? My guy, what are you doing?
I was out of guys. I went with the blue.
Out of guys.
I had filters. I went with the filters.
All right, go ahead, Brian.
K-Rod was early, but I get the whole reach on a reliever thing. I did it too, Trevor Hoffman. So I kind of get it. I get the pick. and he was a stud. So so that's really probably one of the least of my concerns with your squad. Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of agree with what a lot of them said. The problem is you can break down, you can look at all the stats. No one on Twitter is going to do that. So just looking at the names, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of votes.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, for me, I Gibson was one of my top three. I really wanted him as well. But I'll tell you, when you said K-Rod, I went like this. I was like, what? Like, Mariano, fine. Hoffman, great. K-Rod, but really? Really? So, you had your little list, and that's cool. I love the Marichal pick. McLean's an okay pick for me. Fergie was on my list in that round as well. Keiko, look, I took Bartolo Colon. I can't say anything about that pick. Overall, I'm going to go on the strength of Gibson, C+ also. Yeah,
I'm in that C range. Bob Gibson, for me personally, it went between Mariano and Bob Gibson. That Bob Gibson at 4 is an absolute A++++. And I love the Juan Marichal pick. I think that's one of the best picks in the third round. So other than that, I don't get it, and I don't think you're going to get a lot of votes here, dude. I'm sorry. I think that's going to be a real struggle. The struggle is going to be real in the tournament.
You guys don't even know I'm going to get the Australian votes.
Here we go.
And the Croatian votes, and I'm going to bring this home.
Love it. All right, Joey, tell us about your squad.
All right, so I was hoping that Pedro would possibly fall to me because I expected Greg Maddux to go way earlier than number 6. So even though I was crushed that Pedro went top 3, I got really excited when Greg Maddux was at 6, so I had to snag him there. I mean, I don't think it's even a debate that he's the best pitcher of the modern era. And then I was going to take Tom Glavine with my second round pick. My second round pick. But unfortunately, JR took him right before me. So had to go with the flamethrower, Justin Verlander. He's the only guy I've ever seen actually get stronger as the game gets later. And so obviously you guys know that I went to Fordham up in New York. So a lot of the homies are Yankees fans up there. So had to pander to my Yankee base. Plus, I also think he's one of the most underrated pitchers of all time. So I had to go with Mike Mussina there. And then I just went straight crowd pleaser with Cliff Lee. And then, again, pander to my Yankee base and also pick one of the best hard-throwing closers of all time with Goose Gossage, who I do believe has better facial hair than Raleigh Fingers. And then for my last one, I really wanted to make the hardcore baseball Twitter that follows us and remind them of how great Felix Hernandez was in his prime. He was so good that he won 13 games but still won a Cy Young Award. So overall, I give myself an A+.
I will say this. I love your squad, Joey. This is probably one of my big heavy hitters here. The Greg Maddux, Justin Verlander. That's probably one of the best 1-2 punches in this draft. Mussina, Cliff Lee, Gossage, and Felix Hernandez. I was hoping for that guy in the last round. That was my guy I had circled on my big board. I give this squad a solid A-. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I think by my metric, Greg Maddux is the best pitcher of all time, but I wasn't going to pick him. But absolute technician. I mean, as far as working corners, he's probably the best to ever do it. Verlander's a great pick. Mussina, I just watched him too long in Baltimore just be fine. I mean, I don't know. It just never blew me away. Cliff Lee, how can you not love Cliff Lee? Goose Gossage, great name. So I think this is a really dangerous squad that could take the whole thing as well. So to me, this is a B+, A-. I put this right on the level of yours, Chris.
All right. What about you, Jack?
So far, this is my favorite team. 1 to 2. I think we were in pretty similar thinking what we were doing. You went Maddox, so that gave me Johnson, and then I went Glavine, and that gave you Verlander. Cliff Lee, I don't think is a top 60 pitcher all time, but you really pandered to the group that we have that's going to be voting. K-Rod was an awesome pick. JB Messina was an all-star for the Orioles 3 straight years and won 2 Cy Young.
Yeah, but I watched him. I watched him all the time. He wasn't.
He won 4 straight gold gloves.
He was the Tim Duncan of the MLB for that era.
He was fine.
I'll give this is a solid A squad so far. It's gonna be a tough one to beat.
Yeah, like Messina is like Mr. Longevity, man. That guy just was just a beast for so long, almost like Jimmy Moore, but on steroids. What about you, Joey? No, we already got yours. Yeah, we already got you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, pretty much copy paste what JR said. This and the next one we're about to talk about, I think, are the 2 strongest squads. So, solid A. I agree.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, Maddox was the player I referenced when I made my pick, saying I was going to take my favorite unless one guy was on the board, and that was Pedro. So love the Maddox pick. Obviously, Verlander, another guy. I'm going with my own anti-recency bias and remembering all the years he struggled for a while. I mean, he's amazing now. I love him as a guy, too. Good success story. Messina, again, I'm a Yankee fan. I'm with Jay on this one. Like, I don't know. He's fine. And I feel sorry guys, I feel kind of the same way about Cliff Lee. Grew up watching Goose Gossage, so it's a fun pick for me to see here. Felix, I've loved him for a long time. So yeah, solid A- on this team for me too.
Quick note about Cliff Lee. Will people remember the Beast Cliff Lee, or will people remember the 2011 NLDS Cliff Lee who blew the game versus the Cardinals? I don't know.
Don't remember the Beast Cliff Lee.
All right.
09 Cliff Lee was 09 Cliff Lee was peak Cliff Lee.
The casual pop up to the mound, just stick his glove out and catch it.
Yeah, he had several of those. All right, go ahead, Jar. Tell us about your squad.
I don't know. I just went most hype names on the board. I tried to think of it as my number 1 versus your number 1, my number 2 versus your number 2, and who do you want to have the ball in your hands? 1 and 2 are just complete studs. They dominated in the 90s. David Cohn, some of the younger crowd might not know, but I remember going up to Yankee Stadium as a kid for a couple games. I got treated to go up there, and it felt like David Cohn pitched every time I was there, and I just loved it. I love listening to him on the Yes Network, too. I think he's got a great following. Dwight Gooden was the absolute man in the mid to late 80s before he got nuts. Like, his stuff was Pedro Martinez before Pedro was Pedro. And then I'm going to pander with the Philly crowd with Brad Lidge because, just like Brian said, all he needs is that one perfect year, and he was unhittable. So, I mean, I like to think 1 through 5, the starters can hang with anybody, and then lights out Lidge could close it out. So,
I mean, obviously, I love the big unit pick. The Tom Glavine pick is so good. Chris Sale in the 4th round is incredibly good. Strikeout master. David Cohn. And I think what people are going to think about with Brad Lidge is this. And I think that's going to get a lot of votes. I give this team a solid A-. Go ahead, JB.
So Randy Johnson, he took so long to develop into the Randy Johnson that we remember, but we really do remember the guy that was, again, just, incredibly intimidating on the mound. But I mean, he was a just complete wild thing for quite a few years in Seattle. Glavine, again, technician, solid second starter on his team in Atlanta for a good long while and a great team. Gooden was a rock star for a few years there. Cohn, I just never liked his. To me, Cohn and Oswalt are basically the same pitchers. They have that compact delivery that I never loved. And Cohn was always kind of an asshole. So I don't have to pander to any Yankees fans. So, I mean, Cohn just an asshole who, I feel like he was not a good guy off the diamond either. So maybe he's turned into a fine guy. I think the Lidge pick at the end is like an absolute steal. I think it's a great pick at the end. It's a bold move to wait that long to get a closer. I really thought closers were going to go early, and getting Lidge in the last round is an absolute steal. So to me, this is a really strong team. It's another B+, A- team.
Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, obviously Randy Johnson at his peak was absolutely just indomitable. I mean, that his slider is absolutely just unhittable as well. Tom Glavine was very Maddox-esque, not saying he was Greg Maddox, but just with the control and painting the corners and all that. And peak Doc Gooden was an absolute wild guy too, but one of the best power pitchers of that time too. And then Chris Sale's one of the best in the game right now. David Cohn was steady, and obviously I love Brad Lidge forever for what he did here.
Brian.
Jason, you and I often have similar views on things, as you know, but apparently we have different views on Oswalt and Cohn, because I like both those picks. And so, yeah, I mentioned it when we went over Joey's team. I think this one and Joey's are kind of destined for a finals matchup, in my opinion. So solid A here.
Can that be the sound clip when we're pre-reviewing this? Because I want to have Brian saying that over and over.
As long as you're not playing me.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I love the first pick. Randy Johnson was in my top 4. I think any batter who had to face Randy Johnson and the next day go against Glavine would just, throw themselves out a window. It's a great 1-2 punch. Gooden was, phenomenal back in his day. I don't think he had the longevity for this kind of thing. Great modern guy, but I have you couldn't pay me to take a modern, like a guy playing right now in this, unless it was Kirsch probably. Cohn, whatever. Lidge, for me, whatever, but I know exactly why you picked him right there, and I think it's a phenomenal pick right there. So I give this team an A-2.
All right, very high grades for JR's squad. Let's move on to Joe. He's got Lefty, Steve Carlton, Clayton Kershaw, Whitey Ford, Jim Palmer, Tim Lincecum, and Rolly Fingers. I think this is a 3-man squad. I think people are going to see Steve Carlton and Clayton Kershaw, 2 great picks as well, and then Rolly Fingers. And I'm not very high on those other 3 picks. I'm in that like C+, B- range, but there something that needs to be said is there's a huge Steve Carlton fan base, and that could win a lot of votes. Go ahead, JB.
I love Lincecum just as a fan to watch guys pitch. I just love guys that throw like that. You know that they're not going to have a sustained career, but loved watching them. Carlton, just a really good pitcher, but a weirdo. And Kershaw is a great pick, I think. Jim Palmer, I never thought he never blew me away. Rolly Fingers, I think, was a great pick at the end there. Never saw Whitey Ford. I don't think I've even seen any old video of him. So I think I like parts of it as a fan. Some of these guys were really worth the price of admission to a ballpark, and that's obviously a big factor for me. And I think Lincecum was a good pick in that regard, because he was a guy you really would want to see live in the ballpark.
Go ahead, JR.
I really don't hate this team. I'll go Carlton as your 1, Kershaw as your 2, Lincecum as your 3, Whitey Ford as your 4, and Jim Palmer as your 5 is a pretty good fucking 5. And then you got Fingers to close it out. I'll give this a B+.
All right, go ahead, Joey.
Yep, Steve Carlton, bar none the best pitcher in Phillies history. Then you got Kershaw, despite the playoff failure, still absolutely just elite. And big-time Timmy Jim, Tim Lincecum. I love that pick because that was a throwback to when he was in his prime. That was the peak of my baseball fandom for sure. And, of course, Rolly Fingers is an absolute legend.
Grade?
Solid B+.
All right, go ahead, Brian.
Some nasty lefties there at the top of the rotation for sure. Steve Carlton above. I mean, you could say this. Well, no, really. I think most of those before that are acceptable. Steve Carlton above Sandy Koufax is not acceptable. But yeah, I mean, it's a solid squad. I don't hate it by any means. I think it's very good. I think it's very good. I don't think it's a Joey or JR squad, but I think it's solid, and they're gonna. No one's gonna want to face them in the first round. I'll say that.
All right, Rich.
I've heard two people say, I don't hate this team. I love this team. This is probably my favorite team. I think Carlton at 1 should not have been ahead of Koufax, but for the purposes of what we're doing here, boom, you're going to get a lot of votes there. Kershaw, probably the best pitcher in the game today, at least by my take. He's going to get a lot of votes there. Whitey Ford and Jim Palmer bring in your baseball historians to say, like, all right, at least he paid attention to that. Lincecum never really did it for me, but I understand, what he was, when he was in his prime. And Raleigh Fingers, again, back to the baseball purists, one of the best closers of all time to round it all out. 1 through 5, for me, best squad out there.
Right.
A, my only A.
Love it. All right, let's move on to Jack's squad. He had Sandy Koufax, Tom Seaver, Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, Bert Blyleven, and Aroldis Chapman. Way too much New York on this squad for my liking. But yeah, you can't deny that, Koufax towards the end of the first round is absolutely ridiculous. One of the best postseason pitchers of all time. One of the best pitchers of all time. Tom Seaver, deGrom. I as a Phillies fan, I hate to say it, they're all timers. And Garrett Cole, man, I think that has a really good chance. I mean, he's on the Yankees. That could, maybe get a lot of votes there. There's potential there. Aroldis Chapman, I guess. But I think this is a very, very solid squad by Jack Fritz. I'm going B+. What about you, JB?
Koufax falling this far is crazy. Seaver, he was awesome. Seaver was an awesome pitcher. I think Chapman at the end is great.
Okay.
He was another, legitimately you didn't want to be at the plate against a guy like that. So I like that. Blyleven doesn't do it for me. That's probably the weakest pick here. So, this is probably a B for me, B-.
JR.
Good squad. My favorite team in the whole draft is this one. Cole and deGrom are fucking horses to have right now, especially with the current NBA and MLB fans that I'll be watching. And then you went Seaver and Koufax is just studs from the old age. You got Chapman who throws 102 miles an hour. This is an A for me.
Joey.
Yeah, that Sandy Koufax pick was probably the absolute steal of this draft, I think. And then Tom Seaver right behind him was one of the best of all time. And then you got 2 elite guys in deGrom and Garrett Cole. I'll say this: the baseball junkies are going to love that Bert Blyleven pick because, like I said, baseball heads will absolutely love that one. And I don't know why, but I'm questioning that Aroldis Chapman pick for whatever reason.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is the third best squad after the JR Joey squad, in my opinion. I think, it's really good. Really, really good. And it might even be on the same level as those other two. And again, I agree. Sandy was the steal of the draft, and all of it looks really good to me.
All right,
For me, the best top 3 of any team. I love that top. Garrett Cole got to do it for a longer amount of time before I would put him on this kind of list. Blyleven is a guy I considered because of his numbers, but figured he's not going to get any votes. And Chapman's an asshole, and I hate him. And I would, just hold that against him and never pick him. So is he a great closer? Sure, but not for me. Overall, though, the top 3, give it a B+.
I like this combination of, legend Sandy Koufax and new guys in Garrett Cole and deGrom. I think that's very strong in terms of voting. And to wrap it up, Brian, tell us about your squad.
I think it's very good. I think I reached on Hoffman. I should have gone with one of the next 2 guys, Seaver or Kershaw there. But I wanted to get, for me it was Mo as the clear top closer. And then the next kind of tier is Hoffman, pretty much by himself, in my opinion. You may disagree, and then kind of a bunch of closers after that. So that's kind of why I did it. Halladay is gonna grab a whole bunch of votes, I know, and deserves to be up there at the top. A lot of the Necro Roberts, they're a little old for a Twitter fan vote probably, but they're just, they're very good pitchers and in their time period. And Bumgarner, Burley, they're solid. Again, I would put myself below those other guys, but hey, you never know. Never know what Twitter thinks.
My quick take is I love the top 2 picks and I love the last 2 picks. Big fan of Roy Halladay and Trevor Hoffman. I think did I get in your head a little bit with my Mariano pick?
Well, probably because, like I said, I actually thought I didn't think people were going to grab closers super early. Maybe I should have thought that. So then I thought I was going to get him in that 10-11 turnaround spot. I was going to grab whatever best starter was there, and then Mo was kind of what I was thinking. Then when Mo's off the board, I guess I was still in that closer mindset. So yeah, a little bit.
I love the Halladay pick. I love the Hoffman pick. I love the Bumgarner pick. Just that guy was absolutely electric in the playoffs. If anyone, I'm hoping people see Madison Bumgarner, remember him just unhittable in the playoffs. And then Mark Burley is one of my favorite picks in that last round. Burley was extremely underrated. I give you a solid B+. What about you, JB?
So I think, it wouldn't surprise me to see this one win again. I don't personally love this. As someone who's watched baseball, Halladay was great. True professional. I think Philly fans just have a reverence for him that is pretty amazing. Hoffman, I think, is really good as a closer. Necro played forever, but was he ever?
He was a good Jamie Moyer.
Well, sort of. Okay. Robin Roberts, again, you're going to get the 75+ crowd. So, and Bumgarner, I really like that pick. So I could see this team winning. But do I look at any of these guys and say I'd pay to go see them because they were pitching that night? Not really.
Roy, I would. What about you?
Honestly, Roy Halladay, a technician, but as a fan in the stands, he wasn't somebody that was worth the price of admission. And this is how I lose all these followers.
Yes, it is.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly. No disrespect, but Roy Halladay was one of the most dominant pitchers I've ever watched. What about you, JR?
Roy's my favorite player almost all time in baseball. That's why 34 is my favorite number. That's why I will play it on when I go to the roulette table every time, no matter what. 34 is Doc Halladay. That is my favorite player all time. I have his book signed by Todd Zalecki, who just made it. I love Roy, so obviously I like that pick. Mark Burley, fun fact, is my number 2 favorite pitcher all time.
Really?
Back in fantasy baseball in the day, I owned him during the 2004, 2005, 2006 years when he was killing it. And Scott Podsednik, his center fielder, he's one of my favorite nobodies that nobody ever knows. But I was so happy when the White Sox won that World Series. I really did love that team. I love Konerko. I love everybody on that squad. So I love Burley in the last round. He's good. Mad Bum is, what people are going to remember Mad Bum? The last 4 years where he's been regressing, or the first 5 of his career where he was dominant coming up? I think it's a solid squad. I'll give you an A- on this because Trevor Hoffman is right there with Mariano in my book. Mariano got the bright lights because he was in New York, but Hoffman was just as electric and just as lights out. So, yeah, I'll give this an A-. I like this squad. I could definitely see this advancing at least a couple rounds, maybe to the championship.
All right, go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I absolutely just love Roy Halladay. I think everybody in this chat right now, he's revered and he's deserving of all of it. Rest in peace, by the way. Obviously, I love the Trevor Hoffman pick. You'll definitely kill the older audience with the Phil Necro and Robin Roberts picks. Obviously, I love Mad Bum as well, and I really love that Mark Burley pick too. Like Chris said, he was very underrated during his career.
Bryant, or no, that's your squad. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, love Holiday too, even though I'm not a Phils fan. I really didn't think any closers were going to go in the first 2 rounds except Mariano, so I was a little surprised to see Hoffman this high. That said, I agree with Bryant. There's Mariano and Trevor, and then everybody else, so it didn't really matter if you didn't go into those 2 guys for me. Negro, Roberts, Bumgarner, Burley, none of them really do anything for me. Sorry. So I'm going to go with a C+ on this.
All right.
Did you guys used to play MVP baseball back in the day with Manu on the cover, 2005?
Yes, sir.
If you ever
That's my favorite video game of all time.
If you ever did like a fantasy draft, you always got Phil Niekro. Like he was always in there as like a legend that was in there. So that's the only reason I know him from that game.
He must have needed a paycheck.
I just remember Brad Miller, the guy that they filled in for Barry Bonds in that game.
So Niekro threw knuckleball, as I'm sure most of you guys know, and that I dabbled in pitching. I was really a right fielder, but if in absolute emergency situations in high school, if they or blowout games, if they needed someone to step in and pitch, I had a fastball and a knuckleball. So I always kind of had a little thing for knucklers. So that's part of the Niekro pick there too.
I mean, it's such a cool part of the sport. Yeah, and he could do a couple of different things. He didn't have to. He's like one of the knucklers that didn't have to throw a knuckleball every pitch. But I just did he ever have an ERA under like 3.3?
Speaking as someone who watched him as a kid,
3 or 3.35.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like that every year. It was like he was a innings filler.
187, 259, 256, 298, 238. All right, get out of here, JB.
Really? Maybe I just remember the last.
I think we're remembering 80s Phil Niekro when it was
Yeah,
over.
I guess so.
That's why for me. I'm like, oh.
I don't remember any Phil Niekro, but I know
I
he
go
was a
out
good
to the
pitcher.
stadium and watch Phil Niekro get lit up, and it's like,
Yeah,
come on.
every time I ever watched, he was mediocre.
All right, let's wrap this up, guys. Make sure you follow our special guest here on Twitter at Rich O'Malley. Rich, tell us a little bit about your book, man.
All right, one more time. One Lucky Fan. It's the story of me seeing a home game for all 123 teams in sports. It's a travelogue. It's a memoir. It is all you could want to think about right now, and when we don't have live sports, is to relive someone who went to see all of them. So until we have that back, check it out on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you buy books.
Yes, sir.
It will make you want to go to the ballpark, which I think there's so many great, especially baseball. One of the best things about baseball is I think it's the best live experience of the four for the game on the field, not necessarily for the off the field stuff, but it's going to every ballpark is like an absolute dream that everybody should do as much as possible. If you're in a city during baseball season, take a night and go to the ballpark that's in that city.
That's if we can ever do that anymore.
Right. All right. Make sure you follow our Phillies channel on Twitter at PhilliesTPL. Starting tomorrow, we are going to be releasing the brackets. It is a single elimination tournament, and it's going to start tomorrow night, and it's going to be fun. We're going to see who has the best squad. You are going to decide who gets the W and who wins the championship. For Jason,
So we get to pick who we go against, right?
no, I'm going to do that. Sorry, it's already pre-written.
Turkey, I'm really pulling. I need you guys in Turkey to really come through for me.
All right. We have a huge turkey audience on our YouTube channel. It makes up for a significant chunk. All right. For
Furkan would vote for me.
All right. For JB, for JR, for Joey, for Bryant, for Rich, check out his book. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Love you guys.
Three-peat.
Peace.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, and being just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get it!